and then we'll get kicked off here. Quick introductions on the Smarter Commerce side before we get into our slide deck. Speaking is obviously Jerry Van Galen. I'm the sales manager here at Smarter Commerce. We're also joined by Diego Fernandez, who is our director of product. He's going to be handling the actual demo portion of our agenda. A couple of housekeeping items before we dive in. First and foremost, again, thanks for being here. So happy to have you guys. We're excited for what we've got planned out for the next few minutes. If you have any questions, Zoom, the platform we're using, has a really handy Q&A feature where you can click on that, pop up a little window, and then type in any questions that you have. My team on the Smarter Commerce side is going to be proactively answering some of those questions throughout the webinar. We encourage the Q&A, love to connect you with, would love to connect with you after today's session if you wanted to continue some of that back and forth dialogue. Today, we're going to be covering what we call the smart path to payments in JD Edwards. What exactly that means, we'll get into in just a couple of minutes. I want to share a brief agenda for what our time together is going to look like. We'll have an overview of who we are as a company, Smarter Commerce. We'll talk about the reality of payments in a digital world, where a lot of B2B companies kind of get snagged up, where they could get it wrong, and then what we call the smarter way, both from a sales order standpoint and from an invoice payment standpoint. Certainly about half our time today is going to be spent in the demo portion of our agenda, and we'll hopefully have a few minutes to address any standout questions at the end of our time together. But of course, Q&A is something that we see as a dialogue throughout the life of the actual webinar. So feel free to type that in, and we'd love to connect with you and answer that Q&A throughout the time together. So just for a quick snapshot of who we are as an organization, Smarter Commerce has been around for over 30 years. We've worked in the JD Edwards space for all 30 of those years. Completed well over 500 Smarter Commerce and JD Edwards projects. As a company, we're based in South Florida in the Miami area, but of course have a network of professionals working all across the US remotely. We do have a history in the JD Edwards consulting space, but since the early 2000s now, for over 20 years, we've actually been partnering with JD Edwards organizations to launch successful projects in the e-commerce, payments, and retail space through our product family by uniting their payment channels with JD Edwards as the single source of truth. Here's a quick snapshot of some of our customers, definitely not a complete list, but maybe some logos on here that you recognize. I know we had some customers register for today's webinar, and if you're here, thanks for being part of the customer family. A couple of things to point out: all these organizations are JD Edwards, are running the JD Edwards ERP. You'll see a mix here of both B2B and B2C brands, and all these organizations have partnered with Smarter Commerce, some for under a year and some for over 20 years. So we appreciate our growing and very diverse customer base as well. If we're asking the question of what is Smarter Commerce, we talked about the who. The what is Smarter Commerce really boils down to a family of 5 main products, all in the commerce, payments, and retail space. And the key here is that all of these solutions not only integrate with one another, but they connect with JD Edwards on a real-time basis. They see JD Edwards as the single source of truth. We've also walked through the Oracle Validated Integration. That's the OVI certification process, so that your team can have confidence that the technology we're introducing into your JD Edwards ERP is certified by Oracle. The value of that JD Edwards connectivity is something that we'll get to in just a minute. First, I want to talk briefly about what payments look like in a digital world. I don't think any of the information here is going to be super groundbreaking or new. Even in the B2B space, it's not news, right? That digital payments are very often an expectation, certainly in the B2C world, but certainly now in the B2B world as well, meaning your organization is dealing with B2B organizations. You're maybe doing exclusively B2B transactions. Digital payments are still very much an expectation, whether that's an ACH transaction, bank to bank, or the use of credit card as a form of payment in the B2B world through the use of P cards, or just typical personal corporate credit card, or personal cards, or even corporate credit cards as well. All of this is today an expectation. Of course, there's still many organizations that we run across that still accept check as a form of payment, or wire transfers, for example, and all of these are still part of the B2B payments mix. But in a growing way, digital payments are becoming an expectation and the norm. Now, in the B2B world, the expectation for these customers sometimes would come as a surprise. Years ago, a growing customer base began to request, hey, we'd like to pay with credit card. We'd like to pay with ACH, digital forms of payment. And so what happens a lot of times, because these B2B organizations, they react and they kind of look to the marketplace and try and find, the quickest solution to be able to launch something to accept payments from customers. Now, of course, this is not a bad strategy, but it is reactive in nature. And so they'll look for a platform, perhaps find some sort of digital payment solution, probably begin using a virtual terminal, which is an online portal where they can insert customer credit card information and pay, a certain amount that the customer service reps would type in, which is certainly not a bad solution. But what we see is that sometimes a comparatively little thought is given for how that process interacts with all of the other processes and systems in that business as a whole. Okay. And so you end up with a number of challenges. And this is what we have come to realize after 20 years of doing business in this space. And this is kind of where, from our standpoint, B2B companies sometimes get it wrong, right? They go to a totally disconnected payment solution. And when we say disconnected, we don't mean internet connectivity. We're talking about disconnected from the wider business processes and processes and platforms that they already have in place. And so this disconnection causes different kinds of headaches. I've listed 4 of the most common examples here. The first is what we call a transaction double entry. A customer service rep will be typing in the sales order inside of their ERP, JD Edwards. And then when the time comes and the customer wants to pay via credit card, then they have to go to another browser, maybe another tab on their browser, and open up this virtual terminal and then type in the customer's credit card information, which the customer is dictating over the phone, and then type in the amount of that sales order, which they're getting from the ERP, and then hit submit, right? And certainly not a bad process, but you're doing a double entry there, right? You have that amount and that information in the ERP, and then you have to go to the virtual terminal and type it in at that place as well. If you multiply that times a couple of hundred processes in a given month, there's a lot of non-value added work through that process. Additionally, we have been reminded that this is an error-prone process. Why? Well, because the amount that you type in on the virtual terminal may not always line up with the amount that the ERP is asking to charge. Additionally, maybe you submit the authorization for that order, you get your money, but then 2 days later, the customer changes the value of that order, and the value of the order goes down or goes up. And unless you have safeguards in place that would remind somebody to go back to that virtual terminal and adjust for that difference, ultimately the customer is going to be charged something different than what's being charged or than what the ERP is accounting for. And so the process in general leaves a lot of space for errors, which ultimately hurts the customer experience and erodes customer trust. Another headache, if you will, is the manual reconciliation. At the end of the month, someone has to sit there and go through all of these sales orders that have been paid with a credit card and then generate some kind of a statement from the credit card organization or payment organization, and then sit there and verify whether the transactions that have been charged correspond or reconcile to how much should have been charged to that customer. Of course, at that point, some errors are hopefully going to be identified, but that manual process of sitting down and reconciling things is just very time consuming. It's not exactly what anybody would like to do on at the end of the month, right? And then the fourth point here really revolves around once a customer pays an open invoice with a credit card or an ACH payment from a disconnected platform, somebody has to go back inside of JD Edwards and then post that payment to AR and then close out the invoice within JD Edwards. That manual process there multiplied dozens, even hundreds of times in a given month, again, generates lots of non-value added work. So again, of course, providing customers a way to pay digitally is a necessity in today's market, but making sure that that process is flowing into JD Edwards and is congruent with your existing processes and platforms is absolutely critical. The other thing that we realize that when B2B companies take this approach, and something I haven't talked about, is that there's actually a really concerning amount of exposure to customer credit card data that's going on. Why? Well, every time a customer calls you and wants to make a credit card payment, they are presumably dictating to you that credit card information over the phone. And the CSR, customer service rep, or somebody from sales, or the accounting receivable folks are equally typing in that information into your systems or on your side of the equation. Now, of course, that credit card information probably not stored inside of JD Edwards or on your environment, but at the same time, a customer is still sharing that credit card information over the phone, which is still some level of PCI exposure, right? PCI just stands for Payment Card Industry, sort of the governing body that helps regulate how credit card information should be handled. So in our experience over doing this for 20 years, when we see B2B organizations handling credit card information, handling ACH information, these are some of the snags that they typically run into. Now, what we have seen is what we call the smarter way. Now, the smarter way is a process that fundamentally takes a JD Edwards connected approach to some of these, to a credit card and ACH process to help address some of the challenges that we talked about in the previous slide and simplifies PCI compliance. Fundamentally, what we're talking about is a credit card application that connects to leading processors in the marketplace like a Braintree, like PayPal, but they integrate that payment processing platform into your ERP process so that when you accept a credit card or ACH payment over the phone or even initiated by the customer via a self-service portal, everything is happening within JD Edwards seamlessly. So that when you, in the first example here, when a customer service rep is placing a sales order, there's only placing that order once. They don't have to log into a separate platform and then charge that credit card. It's all happening within one process. Of course, this eliminates the possibility and the risk of error, as we talked about earlier. The reconciliation is all managed when you're using a JD Edwards connected solution. When the order changes, the order amount changes, the amount that a solution would authorize or would charge would change with it. And so the reconciliation at the end of the month is automatically generated because you have that tie-in between the processor, the processing solution, and your JD Edwards activity. And then last but not least, of course, on the account receivable side, the posting is all taken care of. All of your accounting on the back end is taken care of out of the box when you're using a JD Edwards connected approach. So tying those two processes, those two systems, eliminates a lot of the headache here. And of course, we talked about the importance of PCI. From a PCI standpoint, when a customer is being prompted to enter their own credit card information, you totally eliminate the exposure that anybody from your team has to customer credit card information. May not always be the case, but certainly with a JD Edwards connected solution, what we call the smarter way, you certainly have that as an option. So what we call the smarter way is it really has two sides of the coin. We've talked about scenarios on the sales order side. We've talked about scenarios on the invoice payment side. On the sales order side, we're talking about a solution and application that is living natively from a user experience standpoint within JD Edwards. Credit card authorizations are happening within the sales order entry process within JD Edwards. You can trigger authorized by email, authorized by text functionality so that customers don't have to dictate their credit card information over the phone, keeping your team far away from any of that sensitive data. You have flexibility in terms of choosing a partner that makes sense for your business. Smarter Commerce partners with PayPal Braintree, as well as another PayPal supported gateway. But we give you guys the flexibility to figure out what partnership works the best for your organization. And then in the world of B2B, a great way to save money on merchant fees is to support level 2, 3 transactions. Because Smarter Commerce is connected with the ERP, we can pull all of that necessary information onto the transaction and bring some savings for your team as well. Additionally, the Smarter Commerce way or the smarter way allows for integration of third-party platforms, whether it's through our partnership with Braintree or even through our open APIs that we make available to our customers. Keeping all of these options, all these processes connected with your JD Edwards process, make sure that everybody's on the same page and that you're not creating additional headaches when you process credit card orders. Much of this can be said on the invoice payment side. The smarter way is to keep all of those credit card and ACH invoice payments native to your JD Edwards experience. This happens on the credit card side. This happens on the ACH side, the bank to bank, right? And then also you can send out customers automated reminders saying, hey, we see in JD Edwards you've got 10 invoices due in the next 60 days. Click here to pay. And in a totally automated fashion, customers can click on that, type in their credit card information, type in their ACH information, and then close out the receivable this way as well. And then even taking that a step further, you can also empower customers with a digital payment portal, something that we call Smarter Commerce e-payments, which is a platform. It's an actual web portal where customers can self-service their invoices. They can see their invoices, download a copy of those invoices, pay those invoices using a bank-to-bank transaction, credit card, and then even set up automatic payments into the future. That's what we call autopay. A lot of capabilities delivered with a customer self-service portal. And the best part is that because it's all tied into your central accounting platform, JD Edwards, it closes out all of those receivables without anybody doing any manual work, really simplifying your collections processes. So there's a lot of other capabilities here that are very powerful. I've mentioned our partners at Braintree. We also have an integration to a credit card terminal, a physical credit card device that integrates into the JD Edwards sales order entry process, as well as our own retail point of sale software supported by Braintree. There's a lot of additional functionality, but the big picture here is that by using a JD Edwards connected approach to handling digital payments, whether it's credit card, ACH, or even alternative payment types like Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal Express Checkout, keeping all of that tied in with your JD Edwards allows you to scale your business without having to create tons of manual work, without having to deal with the PCI burden that typically accompanies a credit card process. Of course, we've talked about payment security, and every time that we talk about credit card information, it's absolutely critical to know that Smarter Commerce has been architected from the ground up to be PCI DSS. DSS just stands for Data Security Standards. It's an actual compliance level that we have to achieve as a vendor offering services in this space. We do that through a couple of technology setups. I'll just highlight two here, and that's first of all that there's never really any sensitive cardholder information that's ever stored inside of JD Edwards, even inside of Smarter Commerce. That sensitive cardholder information is actually tokenized. Another term used is vaulted at the payment gateway, whether that's Payflow Pro or Braintree. That's where that sensitive cardholder information is. You don't have to worry about it as a JD Edwards organization. And then additionally, our Smarter Commerce Cloud offering provides all of the necessary hardware for you to be able to run Smarter Commerce payments and never have to worry about hosting a server that deals or processes any of that sensitive cardholder information. Anyways, that's kind of walk through a few different points there. I hope it's clear that as a B2B organization, you have a growing expectation to offer digital payments to your customers. And you can take an approach that creates more manual work for your team, generates non-value added work, and introduces error-prone processes, or you can transition to what we call the smarter way, which is using a JD Edwards connected solution that helps integrate that existing credit card platform with your JD Edwards process to help make everybody's life easier, especially providing a superior customer experience. So what we're going to do now is transition over to the demo portion of our agenda. We've got Diego Fernandez, who's our director of product. He's going to walk through a series of scenarios within JD Edwards Enterprise One, showing us this smarter way of handling payments with Smarter Commerce payments, both on the sales order side and on the accounts receivable side through an invoice payment, and then showcase a little bit of the power of an invoice payment portal as well. So with that said, I'll go ahead and mute myself. I will stop sharing. I will only extend my time here to say, hey, if you've got any questions, send them in. We'd love to interact with your team and hear about some of the challenges you're facing and how Smarter Commerce could potentially help. So appreciate your time, Diego. I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Jerry. Let me go ahead and share my desktop here, if you bear with me 1 second. All right, I've gone ahead and shared my desktop, a demonstration JD Edwards 9.2 environment. And I'm currently logged in, and I'm on a menu page that I've created for this presentation called Credit Card Sales Order to Cash Process. I just want to confirm, Jerry, that you're seeing that on your side. Make sure that everything is
Yep.
going through correctly.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you very
coming
much.
through fine, Diego. Thanks.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk through how you can implement our solution to make your payment processes more seamless to your internal users, and obviously protect the information of your customers as they are entering in that information themselves. As you are aware, or maybe some of you that are new on the call, this is our latest release 7, and we recently informed all of our customers that we are doing continuous updates to our solution so that you can take these updates as you move through the different capabilities that we're offering. So I'm going to share some new capabilities that maybe some of our existing customers that are on the call aren't aware of. And then also I'll share some general capabilities that have existed for a while within our solution for those new customers so that they can see how seamless it is for your users to interact with our solution. So here within our JD Edwards environment, we're going to go ahead and enter a sales order, assuming the customer is on the phone, obviously, and I'm going to go ahead and enter in their information within the order header. Maybe they provided a PO number as part of the process, and then I'll go ahead and enter in the products that they're desiring to purchase, whatever that is, one or many of those products. And this customer that I've chosen is a customer that pays via credit card and has been configured that way. So as soon as I hit either the submit and enter new or submit and close, it's going to drive us to a Smarter Commerce Enterprise One delivered application that is fully integrated and Oracle validated with your JD Edwards environment, so that to your JD Edwards users, the capabilities that I'm going to speak to will just be native and work in a similar fashion to any other JD Edwards application. So this application, the main intent here is to be able to go out and obtain an authorization of funds against a credit card. But we've added many new capabilities to this application to really ease the methods of which you want to do business with your customers, and again, continue to protect and provide them protection against their credit card information. So just a quick recap of what you're seeing here for those that are especially are new on this webinar and are new to our solution. Here to the top left, you'll see the customer number and address information in order to perform address verification services, which is a capability that we offer, and it is an optional service that you can configure on or off depending on your specific needs. Over to the right, you'll see the order that we're working with, and right below it is a running total of the order itself coming from JD Edwards. May also notice here as part of the running total towards the bottom, there's a new capability that maybe some of our existing customers aren't aware of, and that is the capability of passing on the credit card fees to your end customer. Obviously, if you do desire to do this, it's recommended that you offer them other methods of payment where you do not have a surcharge fee for payment. But this is a new capability that you can toggle on or off or configure. It does follow, obviously, different state rules that you need to be aware of and configured based on the state rules that are allowed to charge. Sometimes some states don't allow it, others allow a minimum amount, and others allow the full pass-through up to 4%. So this way it gives you a capability of doing that pass-through of those credit card surcharge fees onto the end customer. As you can see here, again, going back to the left, we have cards on file capability where you can store one or many cards for your customer on file. But rest assured that this information, the sensitive information, is stored in the gateway, vaulted in the gateway, and tokenized in the gateway. And what's stored locally within your environment in JD Edwards is the associated token to reference that specific card. You are allowed to store locally the last 4 digits of the card for reference purposes with your customer. And obviously this will ease in not hearing, but rather just selecting the card from on file and authorizing funds against that token easily and quickly. Now, in the majority of cases, though, a lot of times you don't have the cards on file, or you have new customers, or these are one-off customers that want to utilize a credit card for this specific order. And when you do that, then we have a lot of different methods in order to obtain that authorization. The traditional method here, authorizing with a new card, assumes that I have the customer on the phone and they're willing to read off their card to the salesperson or customer service person. Well, I'll go ahead and type in that credit card information. That's been around within our solution for many, many releases and obviously years, as we have worked with our credit card processing partners in order to utilize this capability and obviously offload the entry of the credit card information into what's called hosted page technology. And again, reducing your PCI compliance capabilities. So if I take this option here, it will go ahead and connect a one-time connection out to what we call the Smarter Commerce Pay Cloud, which is a hosted payment functionality where you can key in the customer's credit card information that they're reading off to you over the telephone to obtain an authorization of funds against their credit card and be able to save the order as a credit card payment order. Important to note here that since this is order entry, all we're really doing is authorizing funds. We're not charging the credit card yet. Normally that is done later in the process. Could be done immediately, but normally done later after shipment confirmation, so that you validated everything you shipped, plus added in any additional costs for maybe freight or handling or delivery fees, and then obviously have the exact tax amount on that. But here your salesperson would be interacting with a hosted payment page, again, where you're entering in all of the credit card information outside of your JDE and a one-time connection to the Pay Cloud. Here, your customer service person, once they've entered it, would click the apply button, which would validate the information entered. And if for any reason typed in wrong, it would go ahead and reject the transaction and the validation. So this is immediate information to the customer. So you can see I've declined that, obviously on purpose, in order to maybe to perform a second type of transaction. And that is what we call the authorized by message transaction. This is where you want your customer to enter in the credit card information themselves. Maybe they don't want to read it off to you. Maybe they prefer to control all of those aspects themselves. This allows you to send an encrypted email with an encrypted link on it, where they can then connect to that and enter that credit card themselves via their mobile device, via their desktop. They can also do it to a phone here. As you can see, I can also send them a text message to their specific phone, or I can email them and they can open up their email and click on the link to open up a message. So here I'm going to go ahead and enter that method of transaction, emailing the customer and asking them to enter in the credit card information. Important to note, as the customer service person or salesperson, at this point, I'm done with the customer. I can hang up and move on to the next customer. That order, though, goes into JD Edwards, but as you can see here, goes in a hold code. It is waiting for the customer to do their part. This hold code is configured by you. A lot of customers use CC for credit card hold, CA for waiting on credit card authorization, whatever it is that you want to designate as the hold code. But what's important is that in the meantime, as I mentioned, the customer will receive an email branded with your logo, colors, verbiage, whatever it is that you want to place, informing them that for their sales order, they need to provide a credit card and authorize funds on it so that you can continue with the processing of that order. So the customer would receive this on their phone and click on the Pay Now button, or receive it on their computer and again click on the Pay Now button, which will drive them to a hosted payment page. This is hosted again by us for you, branded with your logo, colors, fonts, so that they are familiar with who you are. They can see all of their information of their order, their customer information here to the left, their order number that they can validate, the order totals that were agreed to on the phone, along with whatever products were on that order. This way, they're not just entering and providing their credit card information, but they're verifying the order just placed and that it was entered in accurately and correctly. And then if I, as the customer, fully agree, I would go ahead and enter in my credit card information for the card that I'm going to utilize. In this case, I'll go ahead and utilize a MasterCard with an expiration date of January of 25 and the card security code. Card security code, a recommended but optional feature. Most customers do require it, but really up to you based on configuration, so that it can validate that 3 or 4 digit number as part of the credit card. Once verified, then the customer would click process payment, which will authorize funds on their card, including any surcharges that have been calculated. Once done that, back in JD Edwards, obviously the order is still on credit card hold, waiting on the customer. We have automated processes that we configure within your environment that will go and retrieve these payments as often as you desire. Most customers run these every 15 minutes and retrieve whatever payments and apply them against the order once that customer has done their part. And that will then not only apply it, but will release the order automatically off of hold and register an authorization record against the order so that it can continue the process, and then eventually you can settle and get paid on that order once you've shipped it. So what's the intent of this authorized by message, whether it be an email or a text message, is to really offload all of the credit card responsibility to the customer, so that your sales personnel, your customer service personnel never have to hear or dictate or write down or enter any credit card information themselves. And as you can see, more and more customers are moving to that, so that it really reduces your exposure and especially your PCI compliance and if you process transactions in this format. So that is a critical new capability that has been introduced and continues to be improved on with our partners that process credit card information. Let me just talk a little bit. I'm going to place another sample order here. I'm going to just bear with me 1 second while I enter in the information, put a couple of products here. And just like before, I want to land on our page. Now, you may notice that I only spoke to or highlighted a couple of options here, but we have many other options that we've introduced as part of our solution and our continuous improvements onto our products. So here, not only can you authorize by message, Obviously, you can authorize a new card by keying it in. And each of these options are configurable in that you can turn on or off the capabilities depending on your users internally and what you want to offer to your customers. As you know, for those customers that are on the call that have been with us for a while, not only do we have this authorized by new card has existed for a while, and also authorized with a card on file has existed for a while. But we've also not only introduced this authorized by message, but we've also introduced this charge with a terminal device. This is where you may have warehouse operations where you have walk-up customers, or maybe even a small retail outlets where you have walk-up customers, and you don't want to be keying in their credit card number on the screens yourselves, whether it be in the JD Edwards virtual screen here or some other virtual terminal. This allows you to interface and interact directly with a Verifone credit card terminal. We now integrated capabilities to be able to take card present transactions right through your JD Edwards applications. So for your walk-up customers that want to pay with a card and immediately charge their credit card because they're walking away with the goods, you can utilize this capability and charge the transaction with an actual physical Verifone credit card terminal device. So another capability introduced as we continue to improve on our products and continue to expand the capabilities and what our customer base is asking for. Not only can we have done that, but we've also done things like authorized credit card on file by message, where a customer wants to approve the authorization. Instead of directly entering it here, we can also send the token credit card by message. They can validate it themselves. They can enter in their card security code themselves and authorize that the same way we just saw them authorize a fully entered credit card via the authorization by message. Another capability that we've introduced as we continue to offload the entry of any of the card information that needs to be controlled and obviously secured, not just the card number, the expiration date, but also that card security code. That way your customer service personnel or your sales personnel would never hear those 3 or 4 digits, and the customer can just enter it themselves. We've also, in all of these capabilities, we've also introduced more informational emails back to the customer so that when transactions do occur, such as a authorized by email or an authorization on a card, we can inform the customer and provide them authorization confirmation or receipts back to them where they can then use that as a validation that they completed their part and that funds have been authorized on my credit card for this specific order or whatever transaction I am processing. So again, as we expand in this area to try to provide you additional capabilities and ways that customers can authorize funds on their credit card. Now, we've also expanded our solution. Obviously, there's a lot of other capabilities here that because of time won't be able to touch on, but it's important to note, and as I close out here, I'm going to go back to the main menu. Once you have a valid authorization on the books, whether it was entered by the customer or it was entered by your salesperson, we have capabilities that you can configure based on order activity rules, the point in which you want to settle those funds or capture the funds or charge the credit card against that original authorization that was obtained. We have reports that give you this capability to be able to settle through the sales order process and complete those processes. And we have reports that you can utilize in order to automatically post this into your AR and clear it. So we're going to walk through here real quick for our order, remembering our order that we authorize here is 8934. So we're just going to do a few warehouse steps. These are typical warehouse steps in the order to cash process. So we'll go ahead and quickly run pick slips, assuming that my warehouse personnel will now pick the product and prep it for shipment. And then once picked, they'll go ahead and confirm the order and make sure that it gets shipped confirmed within JD Edwards, validating what's been shipped. Again, a typical process within your JD Edwards order to cash process. And then normally, and as I mentioned, because of order activity rules, I have configured my settlement process or my capturing of funds after shipment confirmation. So here you would go through and run this. Normally, customers will run this in unattended nightly operations and settle everything at a particular order activity and charge the credit card to that customer. Now, this capability obviously goes out, charges the credit card, and then you would get paid normally the next day from your processor through your merchant bank back to your bank account. This report is also a critical report in that it details out exactly the amount that you settled against, including any surcharges, any taxes, and if you added in any freight or delivery fees. This is the amount that you will be paid on. And this report is very useful to your accounting folks as they, utilize these reports in order to reconcile the next day all of the payments received. And we have automated reconciliation processes that I'll just touch on briefly in a few moments. Now, once I have reconciled those and charged those credit cards, a couple of additional standard steps you find in the order to cash process is the generation of invoices by a customer to get it out to the customer. So we'll go ahead and do that as part of our order to cash process here. And then lastly, we'll do what's called the sales update once the invoice print completes. And this, as you're aware, in JD Edwards, writes all of the information to the general ledger, does the sales history tables, and updates the customer ledger information in the AR system. Now, temporarily, this order generated an invoice. This invoice is in my customer ledger for this customer, but this sales order and invoice is right now in an open status. Why is it in an open status? Is because I haven't run the last step of the process, which is posting of all of these payments and automatically. This is the beauty of our solution in that it automates the entire process beginning to end. As long as we gather and gain that authorization accurately up front, the rest of the process is fully automated so that none of your users need to really get involved and try to work through or run any additional processes. So we're going to go ahead and execute the payment posting here. And the payment posting, normally customers will execute this in scheduled unattended operations, allowing it to pick up all of those charges and automatically apply them to the customer's accounts receivable. And if I go back to the customer ledger here and I re-inquire and refresh my screen, we'll notice that the transaction is now closed. And if I go into details as to receipts, we can see that a receipt record and that this was paid with a MasterCard ending in all fours. By doing this automated process, the only piece that we're missing now is to reconcile the wire transfer of monies that we received from our merchant bank. So here we also provide capabilities around that, in that we have automated reconciliation processes that have been introduced, and also manual payment reconciliation processes that allow you to tick and tie those transactions and work any exceptions that may have been based on timing, or sometimes require some additional days of processing depending on the type of credit card. So we've taken the entire process, automated it, and given you tools to be able to confirm that you've been fully paid and reconciled, and that nothing was missing in the monies that you've received from your merchant bank and your processor. Obviously, this is great capabilities, mostly focused, though, in this area in the upfront sales order to cash process, which is vital to most organizations, and provides a simple, easy to use capability to your user community within your JD Edwards that is intuitive and be able to gain that authorization upfront easily and quickly. But a lot of times we can't utilize or have the credit card information as part of the sales order process. Sometimes customers have terms with us or credit limit, but now they want to utilize another form of payment in order to clear out their AR. And there we've expanded our collections capability with NAR in order to allow you to use of credit cards for obviously AR invoices that are sitting open, and now the customer is desiring to pay with a credit card. We've expanded the capability of paying off invoices with an ACH payment, where you can initiate an ACH payment against the customer's bank account with their approval, and be able to process that ACH payment and apply it into your AR invoices. And what a lot of customers have done here is that they offer this additional capability of ACH payments, and then maybe if they want to utilize a credit card, that's where you can pass on some of those credit card fees, maybe 2% or a portion of them, but allowing them, if they want to use ACH, to be a non-fee type transaction, and be able to collect those monies. We've also created a series of automated payment reminder systems that you can configure within your solution. These automated payment reminder systems you can set up, and it will email your customers when invoices are coming due, so that you can stay on top of collections, and your customers will receive a email, again, something like this, branded to your logo, colors, verbiage, whatever it is that you want to say, where your customer can, again, receive a reminder that some invoices are coming due. Click on the Pay Now button, which will open up a portal with your logo and colors that is hosted outside of your system by us and the payment processor. And here the customer can review their invoices, and if they agree that they're obviously due, can go through and make payment on these invoices. And again, offering them all of the various payment capabilities that we work with. Credit card payment, we also offer PayPal as a payment option. If you want to allow your customers to use their PayPal account, they can use ACH to make payment options. Here, they can also have alternative payments if you desire. We can turn on those capabilities also, Google Pay and Apple Pay. So many different capabilities here. As you can see, the customer can go through, put in their routing information that they desire to utilize for their bank account, their test bank account, their bank account number here. I'll enter in a test bank account number. All of this is being populated from their customer information. Mark it, it's a checking account, and once everything is valid, I, as the user, would click verify. That validates the information, and as everything is good, I can go ahead and process and start the ACH payment. Now, obviously, I can also pay with a credit card here, similar to what we've just seen in other areas, or a PayPal account. This is just an example of being able to extend other forms of payment to make it easy for your customers to deal with you and pay you in the way they feel most comfortable. And then here they would process their payment and basically get a payment confirmation that they can then take as a receipt. They can print this off if they desire, and they will receive an email confirming, just like we saw earlier, the payment that they just made. So this is the type of flexibility now that we've offered to our customers, so that you can work with your customers as you desire and offer them additional forms of payment. Not only can you set up all of the capabilities of a reminder system, but we also now have capabilities around what we term auto pay. Auto pay, for example, on a personal level, I have auto pay with my electricity bill and my water bill. I've set up a payment rule and basically said, hey, when it's due, charge my credit card for the amount due. Same here. You can set up payment rules for your customers, obviously agreeing with them and working out the agreements, but then it will automatically charge their credit card or perform an ACH transfer based on the rule that you've activated and clear off those invoices automatically. The beauty of this system is no user intervention. As soon as those invoices are due, you have a payment rule, it will automatically process that payment, apply it automatically against those invoices, move it into your bank account, and then you can reconcile the next day when you get your wire transfer. And then lastly, a lot of times customers want to be able to pay their invoices, but on a one-off basis. So what does that mean? Maybe your customer has some invoices that are due. They didn't receive or have a reminder, but they want to go ahead and pay some invoices. Maybe they're already some old invoices. You can utilize right through your customer ledger application, select those invoices that the customer wants to pay, and send an email to them with that reminder so that they can then go in and make payment on the invoices they wanted to pay. So if they want to pay with a credit card or do an ACH, and they don't want to read off that information to you, you can do the same capability right through the invoice customer ledger inquiry applications that we just saw earlier through the sales order processes. So this is the beauty of our system as we try to make it easy for you to work with your customers, reducing your exposure for PCI and moving those things and offloading them into our Pay Cloud and working within partners with our payment processing gateways, and obviously giving you capabilities to collect on your invoices quickly and easily. As you can see, I've thrown a lot of information at you. I just want to highlight one other capability that we also have introduced as part of all of this, and that is what we term the payment portal. The payment portal is a customer-facing portal where your customers can log in to the payment portal and do exactly what we talked about within the JD Edwards. So they can self-service, go in and see invoices that are due. They can manage all of their payment wallet, credit cards, and bank accounts themselves. And when they're ready to make payment, they can go and pay off any open invoices easily and quickly here by selecting the invoices that they want to pay off, one or many, and then moving into the payment process where they can again charge their credit card and pay off those invoices, or perform an ACH transfer to pay off those invoices, or utilize some of the alternative payment capabilities that we have. This payment portal would be branded to your company's standards and give your customer not only the ability to obviously stay current, but see real-time information, stuff like their account balances, their credit limit, their exposure. They can see order history through here and drill into specific order details of a particular order and see the status of those orders if you allow them to, and see everything that's on that order. Invoice history, same way they can go through. And if you even archive your invoices, your PDFs, they can go in and obviously download those PDFs and themselves on a self-service basis without having to call your customer service or accounting department. Hey, I lost a copy of my invoice. Can you resend it? They can just go in and do that themselves. So the e-payments portal really extends the capabilities out to your customers as a self-service portal, so that they have no excuses to be able to really do what they need to do in order to stay current with you, and also to download the information that they need for their own business. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing. I know we have a couple of minutes left. Hopefully, this has been educational to the team. Obviously, we just scratched the surface in capabilities, but I wanted to pass back, as we only have a couple minutes, to Jerry for any closing comments. Thank you for everyone.
Yeah, Diego, appreciate your walkthrough there of all those capabilities. Hopefully it's clear how, taking a JD Edwards connected approach to payments can really help streamline a lot of things, including your credit card process, your ACH process, the actual collections efforts, and just create a much more streamlined process for all of the employees at your organization. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Appreciate all the Q&A that we've received throughout this time. If there's any follow-up questions, feel free to email us. I think I've already received a couple of emails from some of the attendees. We have recorded today's webinar. We will be distributing it to all of the webinar or all the folks that registered to the webinar, and you should be receiving that likely tomorrow. So we welcome further conversation, further discussion. Appreciate everybody's attention here and look forward to continuing the conversation later on. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.